So let's look at a few victories. And these are case histories that for the most part you've heard before. In some cases you've heard them yesterday. But for some of you who weren't here yesterday, they're going to be newer to you. And they may be stories that you've heard about. But let's look at just some of the people and some of the companies that have come out of the woodwork from nothing and seen some real success. Well, one of the best examples, well actually this is one about me, because I'll go to the one in a second, but for myself, I recorded a podcast, which is an audio file all about the U.S. mortgage industry. All about mortgages, subprime mortgages, and all those things that we've heard about in the news over the past year or so. And that audio podcast, I put it on the iTunes Music Store. Okay, the iTunes Music Store is where you can download music for 99 cents a song and get whole albums. And you can also download podcasts, which is what I uploaded, to make available to the public, and they're free. So I didn't make any money doing this. But the iTunes Music Store is a raging river, right? It's a website that has tons of traffic. And all of these social media platforms are raging rivers. And the real question is putting something in the middle of a raging river that gets people's attention, and then you can bring them back to your website. And that's exactly what I did. And the thing got downloaded in 27 countries. I couldn't believe it. When it first started, I was thinking, who in the world are these people? And why do they care? Why does someone in Argentina care what the mortgage industry is like in the United States? But for whatever reason, they found the information. And that was, to a large extent, that was how my career in the internet, in online marketing, that's where it started. And people used to ask me to do workshops about real estate. And then one day someone called me and asked me to do a workshop and said, we don't want you to talk about real estate. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, we want you to talk about podcasting. Because they'd seen what happened to the podcast and it got written up in a bunch of different places. And so I did that. That's where the whole thing started for me. And it's just accelerated since then. Blendtec. A case history many of you have heard before. But Blendtec is a company based out of Colorado. And they manufacture residential and commercial blenders. And as the story goes, this is the CEO, actually. I met this guy at a conference. We both spoke at the same conference. And he's a nice guy, super unassuming guy. Super unassuming guy. And as the story goes, there's a room in their factory where they test these blenders. Okay? And he went in there once, and the whole room was scattered with sawdust and chips of wood. And he asked what was going on, and the guy who works there said, we're just testing the blenders. He said, how are you testing it? And he said, we blended a 2x4. We blended a 2x4. And the blender lived, right? The blender survived. It was a residential blender. The blender survived, and the 2x4 was destroyed. He said, it's incredible. It's remarkable. We have to get that on video. Guys, they started this campaign for $85 because they had something remarkable. And so they put it on video. The thing was, the videos were downloaded. They blended all sorts of things, including marbles and chunks of concrete. They blended a full-size rake on film. You can watch, all these are on YouTube, okay? And this one here is an iPhone. It's an iPhone. They blended an iPhone. And the thing gets completely destroyed. It literally turns to dust. Okay, the guy on the video called it eye dust. The video is fun to watch, guys. Even if you've heard the case history before, it's worth watching the video to see what they did. And the biggest thing you'll notice is that the video is simple. It's not beautifully done. It's not high production value. But what it's showing is remarkable. And they didn't double their sales. Top line revenue, not profit. Top line revenue. They didn't double. They didn't triple. They didn't quadruple. They increased their sales 700%. I mean, it completely blew the company out of the water. And they had cash flow problems at the beginning because they couldn't keep up with the demand. Because it caught on. Because what they did was remarkable. Koji Korean Barbecue. Another perfect example. Guys, we're talking about a white truck that sells food on the corner, on the side of the street. And they started a Twitter audience for themselves. People in Los Angeles. The truck is in Los Angeles. And they started developing that local audience. An easy thing to do on Twitter. Okay. And then what do? They stack their truck full of food, so it's all ready to go. They can serve a few hundred people. And then they start tweeting, guys, we're coming to Sepulveda and Lincoln at 2:30 this afternoon. And a frenzy begins, and all these people are texting each other, guys, Koji's coming. And if you think I'm exaggerating, seriously, go to Google and search for Koji Korean Barbecue and then click the Images tab up at the top. And you'll see dozens of photos that are just like this, of lineups, blocks long, of people waiting to get their hands on some of this barbecue. It's amazing. And they came up out of nowhere. And of course, who could forget Susan Boyle, who came up, literally out of nothing, but had a remarkable performance that ended up getting watched on YouTube 72 million times. Imagine how her life has changed. And last but not least, Barack Obama raised $660 million on the internet by being on the social web, by participating in the conversation, right? So what do all these case histories have in common? One of the biggest things they have in common is that they were nobody. They were nobody. All of them. None of these people were anybody before what they did online. And what they did online made them into who they are today. So that hopefully is a glimpse of what's possible. And of course there are extreme examples, right? These are case histories that made the news because they were so remarkable. But it still shows what's possible. It still shows what can be done. So let's break it down a little bit. Let's look at specifically what they did. And I would say that they did three things. They demonstrated their expertise in the public, on the social web, on today's social internet. They participated in the conversation. And they rewarded interaction. And I have case histories for each one of these.